They looked at your open heart and made a fast decision. Too fast. They saw your kindness and thought it was weakness. They saw your patience and thought it meant you would stay no matter what. They saw how calmly you loved, how gently you spoke, how often you gave people the benefit of the doubt, and they assumed they already knew the ending. They thought you would chase. They thought you would wait. They thought you would keep reaching, keep explaining, keep fixing, keep carrying the weight of a connection that was never being carried equally. But they missed something important, very important. Quiet people are often the last people you should underestimate. Some strength is loud. Some strength does not need to prove anything. It listens, it watches, it bends for a while. Then one day, without drama, without begging, without warning, it stands up and leaves. And when that happens, the person who thought they had control suddenly feels the ground move under them. Stay with me, because this is where the story changes. This was never about someone being cold and you being weak. It was about a deep misread. They mistook your love for dependence. They mistook your softness for low standards. They mistook your presence for permanent access. And when they finally understood the truth, it was already too late. You were never easy to play. You were simply real in a world full of emotional distance, and real people are always the hardest to replace. At the beginning, it probably looked simple from their side. You were warm. You were steady. You were emotionally available in a way that felt rare. And for a person who fears true closeness, that kind of energy creates both comfort and temptation. Comfort, because your presence feels safe. Temptation, because your care can start to feel like something they can lean on without fully showing up in return. That is where the pattern begins. Not always with bad intentions. Not always with some dark plan. Most of the time, it starts with fear. Fear of being seen too clearly. Fear of needing too much. Fear of giving someone enough power to hurt them. So they protect themselves the only way they know how. They slow down when things get close. They pull back when things feel real. They test space. They delay answers. They keep one foot in and one foot out. And when you respond with understanding, they take that in as data. If I disappear for a little while, will this person stay? If I go quiet, will they come after me? If I offer little, will they still give a lot? Every moment becomes information. Every response becomes a measurement. And because you cared, because you believed in honesty, because you wanted to build something solid instead of playing games, you answered with grace. You gave the benefit of the doubt. You kept the door open. You thought patience would make things safer. You thought consistency might teach them trust. But what they saw was something else. They saw room. They saw cushion. They saw emotional margin. And without meaning to, they began treating your loyalty like something that would always be there. That is why people like this can seem so confusing. They do not always test others in obvious ways. Sometimes it is subtle. A late reply here, a cancelled plan there, a soft promise with no clear follow-through, a warm moment followed by sudden distance, a deep conversation one night, then cold silence the next day. It creates emotional fog, and if you are a thoughtful person, you try to understand it instead of reacting right away. You tell yourself, maybe they are stressed, maybe they are scared, maybe they just need time. And often that is partly true, but here is the problem. If empathy is not held together with self-respect, it can slowly turn into self-abandonment. You keep translating their behavior. You keep making space for their wounds. You keep adjusting your expectations. And little by little, you start carrying the emotional labor for two people. They become used to that, used to your check-ins, used to your calming presence, used to the fact that when tension appears, you are the one who tries to repair it. And because you do this with dignity, not chaos, they start believing you can handle anything. They believe they can give less and still keep you close. They believe your depth means endless tolerance. That is the part they get wrong, completely wrong. Understanding someone is not the same as agreeing to be drained by them. Seeing someone's pain does not mean you are willing to live inside the confusion it creates. And this next part matters because it is where the whole illusion starts to crack. You were never weak for trying. Caring makes people try. Healthy people communicate. Honest people reach out. Emotionally mature people search for clarity before they walk away. So no, the fact that you leaned in at first does not make you foolish. It means you had depth. It means you had intention. It means you wanted something real enough to work through discomfort instead of running at the first sign of difficulty. But even the most patient heart has a threshold. There comes a point when the mind gets tired of decoding mixed signals. There comes a point when the body gets tired of staying alert for inconsistency. There comes a point when your soul quietly asks, "Why am I doing all the work just to feel half-loved?" That question changes everything, because once you ask it honestly, you cannot unsee the answer. You begin noticing how much of your energy is spent managing uncertainty. You notice how often you shrink your needs just to keep the peace. You notice how quickly you respond to them while they take their time with you. You notice how often you explain your intentions while they hide behind vagueness. And suddenly the connection no longer feels mysterious. It feels imbalanced. It feels heavy. It feels one-sided in a way you can no longer dress up as potential. That is the beginning of your shift. Not rage, not revenge, just clarity. Calm, sober clarity. And clarity is dangerous to any pattern built on confusion, because confusion only survives when one person keeps doubting what they already know. The change usually does not happen in one dramatic moment. It happens quietly. You stop sending that extra message. You stop rewriting your texts to sound less needy when all you wanted was normal effort. You stop filling the silence with explanations. You stop making excuses for behavior that keeps hurting you in new ways while wearing old masks. It is not that you love less. It is that you begin loving yourself enough to stop overextending. You start matching energy, not to punish, but to protect your peace. You stop chasing after every emotional retreat. You stop trying to earn clarity from someone who keeps offering confusion. You stop performing emotional labor for a connection that should have been mutual from the start. And the person who once thought they understood you suddenly cannot read you anymore. That is when their certainty gets shaken. Before, they knew the script. Pull back a little, and you would lean in. Go quiet for a while, and you would reopen the line. Give a breadcrumb, and you would build a full meaning around it because you still hoped there was something deeper underneath. But now, the old script is not working. You are no longer feeding the cycle. Your silence feels different from theirs. Their silence was often control, distance, self-protection. Yours becomes grounding. Yours becomes self-respect. Yours becomes the space where you finally come back to yourself. And when someone is used to regulating through control, losing that control feels unsettling, very unsettling, because now they are no longer managing your emotions. They are left alone with their own. This is the moment many people misunderstand. They think power means becoming colder than the other person. It does not. Real power is not bitterness. Real power is emotional regulation. Real power is being able to feel deeply without acting from panic. It is staying calm when the old version of you would have sent 3 more messages. It is choosing silence when the old version of you would have rushed to fix the distance. It is observing instead of reacting. That kind of steadiness shifts the whole emotional field. Because once you stop absorbing all the tension has to go somewhere. It goes back to the person who created it. That is when they start feeling what you used to feel. Not always in a dramatic way. Sometimes it shows up as curiosity, sometimes as restlessness, sometimes as checking your profile more often than they want to admit, sometimes as replaying conversations they once brushed past without a second thought. The uncertainty they planted in you begins to echo in them. And here is the key difference. You did not create that uncertainty to win anything. You simply stopped buffering it for them. You stopped being the emotional shock absorber in a pattern that kept bruising you. That is why your shift carries such weight. It is clean. It is calm. It is hard to argue with. If you had exploded, they could have called you dramatic. If you had begged, they could have called you too attached. But your composure left them with no easy story. And when someone loses the story they used to justify their distance, they are forced to face themselves in a new and uncomfortable way. At first, they may not even know what is happening. People who rely on distance often process things late. While you were feeling the confusion in real time, they were numbing, delaying, minimizing, distracting. But absence has a strange way of bringing truth to the surface. When your effort disappears, they feel the missing shape of it. When your warmth is no longer always available, they realize how much they had quietly depended on it. The good morning messages, the emotional openness, the willingness to talk things through, the patience, the soft energy that made everything easier for them without them ever having to say it out loud. Once that rhythm is gone, something inside them starts shifting. They wonder why you have not reached out. They notice your emotional door is no longer swinging open on its own. They start asking silent questions they never had to ask before. Are they done? Are they moving on? Did I misread them? Was their care stronger than I thought? Was my place in their life less secure than I assumed? These questions do not always come with humility right away. Sometimes they come mixed with ego, with disbelief, with a desperate wish to prove they still have influence. But the crack has already formed. They are no longer certain. And when someone who built safety around predictability starts losing predictability, the whole dynamic begins to reverse. Keep listening, because this reversal is not about games. It is about what naturally happens when one person stops abandoning themselves for connection. This is often where they reappear, not always with a confession, not always with the honesty you once hoped for. Sometimes it is a small message after a long silence, casual on the surface, heavy underneath. A like, a reaction, a simple check-in, a strange kind of nearness that pretends nothing happened while secretly trying to measure whether the door is still open. But by now something in you has changed. You no longer feel automatic. You no longer feel pulled to respond from fear. You pause. You watch. You listen not just to their words, but to their pattern. That is growth. Before, attention from them may have felt like relief. Now it feels like information. Before, you might have rushed to reconnect because any sign of effort looked like hope. Now you understand that a small return is not the same as real change. You know that people can come back for many reasons: loneliness, curiosity, ego, the loss of control, the discomfort of realizing someone they thought would always stay is no longer waiting in the same way. And this is where your new strength matters most, because your silence was never meant to punish. It was meant to heal. Your distance was not a trick. It was alignment. You aligned your effort with what was being returned. You aligned your availability with your own peace. You aligned your love with your standards. That is why you can now look at their reappearance without collapsing into it. You can be warm without surrendering your boundaries. You can be open without being instantly accessible. You can care without handing over unlimited access to your inner world. That new energy unsettles them more than anger ever could. Anger they can understand. Anger gives them a shape, a target, a story. But calm distance is harder to control. It creates mystery, it creates reflection, it forces them to wonder what changed. And that is the strange irony. They once thought you were easy to predict because you were so honest, but the moment you stopped overexposing your emotional availability, you became harder to read. Not fake, not manipulative, just contained, just self-respecting, just no longer offering full emotional access to someone who had not earned it. And when access is no longer guaranteed, value becomes visible. That is when respect starts to form. Quiet respect, maybe reluctant, maybe unspoken, but real. They begin to see that your softness was never fragility. It was discipline. It was emotional intelligence. It was the ability to stay kind even while being misunderstood. And once your boundaries appear beside that kindness, the image they had of you starts breaking apart. You are not the endlessly waiting person they assumed. You are not desperate. You are not emotionally trapped. You are someone who can love deeply and still leave with grace when the love is not being honored. That realization lands hard, because nothing humbles a controlling pattern faster than discovering the person you thought would stay available is fully capable of walking away without hatred, without noise, and without asking for permission. Still, not everyone grows from that realization. This is important. Some people will feel your absence and step into reflection. Others will feel your absence and retreat even deeper into themselves. Some will respect your boundaries from a distance, yet still lack the courage to meet them. Some will convince themselves they never cared that much because facing the truth would require accountability. And that has to be okay, because your transformation was never supposed to depend on their breakthrough. Your healing cannot wait for someone else's readiness. Your peace cannot be built on the hope that the person who confused you will one day become the person who finally explains everything. Sometimes they do change. Sometimes they do come back differently. But many times, they only come back enough to check whether they still can. That is why discernment matters now more than longing. You have to learn the difference between someone who is genuinely trying and someone who is simply reacting to lost access. Genuine effort is steady. It is honest. It is accountable. It does not hide behind mixed signals. It does not ask you to read between lines that should have been spoken clearly. Reactive pursuit feels intense at first, but thin underneath. It brings attention without depth, presence without responsibility, interest without consistency, and because you are no longer led only by hope, you can feel that difference faster now. You can sense when words are buying time. You can sense when affection appears only after distance fails. You can sense when someone misses your energy more than they value your heart. That awareness protects you. It keeps your compassion from becoming a doorway to old pain. What changed in you is bigger than this one connection. That is why this matters so much. You did not just stop texting first. You stopped negotiating your worth. You stopped measuring your value by how consistent someone else could be. You stopped turning love into labor. You stopped shrinking your needs so another person could stay comfortable in their distance. That kind of change touches everything. It changes the way you speak. It changes the way you wait. It changes what you are willing to explain and what you simply observe. You become less available for confusion and more available for peace. Less available for guessing and more available for truth. Less available for emotional crumbs and more available for real reciprocity. That is not becoming cold. That is becoming clear. And clarity has a different energy. It is not loud. It does not need to announce itself. But people feel it. They feel that you are no longer trying to convince anyone to choose you. They feel that your warmth is still there, but now it moves with wisdom. They feel that your kindness is still alive, but now it comes with standards. That is why the same person